So I'd like to welcome everybody. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently tonight. We have two meetings that we will be conducting. The first is we will, instead of convening as the Salt Lake City Council, we will be convening as the Board of Canvassers of Salt Lake City. So the first item of business, if I could have you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have one item of business tonight. We do not have any public hearings or potential action items. So we'll go directly to the resolution, which is the official canvass of the Salt Lake City primary election of 2019. Look for council motion.
Mr. Chair.
Or Board of Canvassers motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of Canvassers adopt the proposed resolution accepting, approving, and certifying the results of the municipal primary election held in Salt Lake City, Utah on August 13th, 2019.
Okay, a motion by Board Member Wharton, second by Board Member Fowler. Any discussion or comment to this item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously and the resolution is adopted. Do we need to formally suspend the rules to do that, or? I think we're okay.
Well, you convened as the Board of Canvassers, so what you might want to do is just take a motion to adjourn as the Board of Canvassers and reconvene as the City Council, just so the record's clear.
So hearing that advice from the City Attorney,
So moved.
Councilmember Mendenhall, or Board Member Mendenhall has made that motion to reconvene as the City Council.
Second.
Second by Board Member Johnston. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now convened as the Salt Lake City Council. So welcome to our formal meeting for Tuesday, August 27th, 2019. We have a couple of public hearings tonight, so I just want to go over our community standards. We just ask that there be no cheering or jeering regarding any of the support or comments that people make. We want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable addressing the council. And so we just want to make things, we ask you to be as courteous as possible. Our first public hearing is an ordinance regarding 504 South 900 East, a zoning map amendment and master plan amendment. I have a couple of cards here for people who would like to speak. If you did not fill out a card, please fill out a blue card and hand it to one of our staff members, raising their hands on the sides. And they will get that to me. Each person will have 2 minutes to address the council. I will read two names. So the second person, if you could be ready to join us at the microphone, that would be great. The first card that I have is from Ian Kaplan. The second is from Jamie Borgenschutz.
Hi, everyone. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for your guys' time and being here this evening to hear this issue. I'm Ian Kaplan, owner of Ad Virtue Design and Development. I'm the owner's rep on this project. I'd like to take the time this evening to address just a couple of items. The first is my experience with the opposition that you may be receiving, either written or verbal, from the patrons in the room. My understanding is that the owners of the lot have a deeded right to access a secondary parcel, along with 5 other adjacent property owners. Currently, there's a small land dispute going on with the owners regarding their extent of rights to use this additional property. While the land dispute may have been triggered by this rezone application, it certainly should have no guidance on whether or not my client's property would better serve the community as a mixed-use development instead of an abandoned gas station. This is a rezone application, not a land rights dispute. So the second item I'd like to address is parking. We understand there are concerns, as usual, with these sorts of matters. We originally proposed to the East Central Community Council to remove a large curb cut in the public right-of-way on the north side of the property to provide an additional 3 stalls of street parking for the entire community. These are shared parking, not permitted parking. The community council strongly opposed and preferred that we replace it with grass, trees, and maybe a small community patio that would connect to our commercial space that we're proposing on the lot. And that's actually what we're planning on proposing currently. We've taken away the parking and replaced it with that. So we're giving the space to the people of the neighborhood, not their cars. We are, however, removing a second curb cut on the east side of the property as well, and that will provide an additional 2 parallel parking stalls on the street for the community to use. As planned, if the development moves forward, we will provide adequate parking per city code without access to this additional land that's involved in the dispute. In other words, we will not need the land dispute to be resolved in order to move forward with the development. However, if parking is still a concern and our neighbors would like to provide additional off-street parking in excess of the city code, then they should support the resolution of the current land dispute in order to create opportunity for providing that additional parking for the neighborhood. If the council or anyone else in the room today has any additional questions, please reach out. Thank you again for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Jamie Bogenschutz, followed by Jared Hall.
Hello, my name is Jamie Bogenschutz. My husband Carl Trujillo and I are the owners of the property at 504 South 9th East. We purchased the property in October 1999 to build a future barber shop with an upper apartment. Above the shop, Carl had been working at the 4th East Style Shop for about 10 years, and we had always wanted to own a shop rather than keep renting. But circumstances and life just got in the way, and we didn't permit us to develop at that time. We have always planned for this to be one of our last projects before retirement, and plan to build some smaller studio rentals, one small commercial space with one larger unit above that for Carl and I to occupy. With this new zoning, we plan to build something beneficial to the community and financially feasible for us. The property has not been a benefit for the neighborhood, and with this zoning, we can accomplish a win-win proposal of housing diversity with owner-occupied on-site management. We have always wanted to be downtown residents sometime in our lives, and with Carl able to retire in about 14 months, now is the perfect time to create a neighborhood asset for all of us. The present zoning will not do that, and the corner will continue to be an eyesore to the community and will not help alleviate the downtown housing shortage. Having owned the place since 1999, this is obviously a long-term project for us, and we do not plan to sell it in the future. We believe that occupying one unit, we can assure the grounds and buildings are maintained in great condition, and we are looking forward to the opportunity to develop our property into something tasteful and useful to the community, as well as provide us a unique opportunity to live downtown in our retirement. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Bogenschutz. Jared Hall, followed by Bob Parker.
Hi, my name is Jared Hall. I'm a resident of District 3. I'm actually not connected directly with this project in any way, but I'm voicing support of this rezone and other rezones similar that provide opportunities for development of infill lots in the neighborhood where we can increase density and diversity of housing types, and that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Bob Parker, followed by Drew Ossie.
Hi, I live directly across the street from the proposed property in the 1902 brownstone. And my only concern, I'm excited about the fact that we're going to be redoing the property there. It has been an eyesore, but my concern really is parking. I went out at 10:30 this morning, took photographs and a video. Every single parking spot was taken, and it's mainly taken because the students from the University of Utah park there because there's no time limit on 5th, and there's no time limit along 9th, so they can park there the entire day if they want. And that's an issue in that there was no spaces whatsoever at 10:30 this morning. So to introduce additional commercial and with the zoning change concerns me in that we're not going to have any really, even if they're adding a couple of spaces, we're not going to have adequate parking. There's no adequate parking right now. The students park down there because it's free, and the track station is a block away on 4th, so they just commute using tracks and coming back. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Dean Ossie, followed by Mark Duncan.
Hello, my name is Dean Anisi, and my concern, and I live in the neighborhood, but my concern is that once the zoning change occurs, as I understand it, there is no way for the city to control that zoning after that change has been made, even though the people wanting to do the project, which I really do like the change of what it is that there will not be any checks and balances on what might happen. So if for some unforeseen reason that it did have to be sold, maybe it all went commercial, and then we had never planned for any parking for all of that commercial building. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anisi. Mark Duncan. Mark's is the last card that I have. If somebody else would like to speak, fill your card out.
Hi, good evening. I own a property just south of the property that's being proposed. Hey, Chris. Our biggest concern, as you just mentioned, they live across the street, is parking. There's an easement that goes, that I think 7 properties share, and they talk about maybe using that easement and giving the property behind for parking. That doesn't make sense for anybody. I mean, it's just traffic up and down the easement that the city does not maintain. So my mother-in-law lives in a building that is just south of where the proposed property is. She calls parking enforcement 5 to 6 times a day because there's a little spot that goes between driveways and people park there, and she can't get out because she cannot see left or right. So I hate to say this, but she has to drive up the sidewalk to get out of that property because you cannot get out of, like I said, she calls parking enforcement. So the biggest thing is, I would love to see a nice property go up there. Just how many units are they talking about? Where are they going to park their cars? Because as we know, Salt Lake City is terrible about parking. That's the biggest concern, is having enough space for parking. I've asked the city to do an apartment behind my house that I own with off-street parking for up to 5 cars, and they've denied me. So, I mean, I'd love to see a nice property go in there. However, we don't want however many parking spots that are needed to be dwindled to off-street parking. Because there's not there, like you said, there's not enough now. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Is there anybody else who would be interested in speaking to this? Mr. Anisi, regarding your zoning questions, Nick Tarbett from our council office, his hand is up over here. He'd be great to talk to about some of your long-term zoning concerns. So, all right. With that, I will look for a motion from the council.
Mr. Chair, I move that we close this public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion?
Turn it on.
Councilmember Johnston.
Is there further discussion needs to be had about the parking issue before we close the public hearing, or can that be done offline? I'm looking at the council members who may be more involved in this than I am.
We could certainly, I mean, if you would like, you can make a substitute motion.
No? I'm interested perhaps in looking at a substitute motion to defer, to continue the public hearing based on some of the comments I'm hearing just about the parking itself being an issue, not necessarily the zoning piece.
I'll
Okay.
accept.
Councilmember Mendenhall?
Yeah, I accept.
Okay, so we now have a substitute motion. Well, we need a second for your substitute motion. Okay, so substitute motion by Councilmember Johnston to continue the public hearing, second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Any discussion to that? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That substitute motion passes unanimously, so that we will have another public hearing at a future date. The next public hearing is regarding an ordinance on 650 East South Temple zoning map amendment and master plan amendment. I have one card from Dustin Holt. If anybody else would like to speak to this item, fill out a pink card and hand it to one of our staff members. Mr. Holt?
Mr. Chair, council members, thank you for your time. As a Salt Lake City resident, I want to thank you for all that you do in your individual districts and on behalf of the city itself. I'm Dustin Holt, a principal at DB Urban Communities, and tonight here before you on behalf of the Masonic Temple Association. The Masonic Temple has roots that run deep in Salt Lake City. Many people don't know, but the temple was actually built in 1927. The ongoing maintenance and operations of the temple are handled through the Salt Lake City Masonic Temple Association, and that's handled through dues, endowments, donations, and a variety of other things. When the temple was built in 1927, it cost $250,000. Think about that. And today it costs nearly that much to operate it annually. So as the Temple Association has looked at making certain they can satisfy the long-term economic viability of the temple itself, together with the planning endeavors of the city, we looked at the vacant parking lot that the Temple Association owns. Currently, they own 5 parcels. 4 of those 5 parcels are already zoned RO, residential office, with the largest parcel being institution. The temple does not have intentions of expanding their institutional campus, and so that zone just is not something that meets their needs. As we've looked at the RO zone, all the permitted uses inside of that zone are currently either on that block or on adjacent blocks. And so for us, it felt like something really simple, pretty straightforward to address, try and square that off or round it out, whatever acronym you want to use. And that's really what the request is. So squaring that zoning off from some of the properties to the south straight up to South Temple itself. 4 of those properties are already zoned RO as mentioned.
Time.
We received unanimous positive recommendation from staff, Historic Landmark Commission, the Planning Commission, and would respectfully ask the same of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Hearing none, I'll look to my colleagues for a
Mr. Chair.
motion. Councilmember Fowler.
I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Fowler, second by Councilmember Mendenhall. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Our next public hearing is regarding an ordinance 402 and 416 East 900 South zoning map amendments. And there are 2 cards that I have here, Kelly Margetts and Barton Moody. Is Kelly Margetts here? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to speak today because basically this is a fiasco. This owner has moved in. They'd like to change the ordinance because there's a tenant that lives up there. You're supposed to go ahead and put sprinklers in this roof so the tenants don't burn to death 24 hours that are living there. That's an ordinance. They want to bypass that. They also are blocking us in with semi-trucks. It's a one-way road. It's called Grace Court Street. And what they do is they consistently put semi-trucks there. Then they say, please go ahead and defer through our property. They put semi-trucks there. They load freight right on the public right-of-way with a forklift that goes up and down the road. I've been hit in the knee by someone that's driving the wrong way because nobody over there seems to respect what's called law and order. So I'm adamantly against any type of proposal until this owner can come to some type of terms. I asked this board to go ahead because there is no information on what they want to do in the future. Therefore, the ruling of consistency should be thrown out. And what we should do is we should table, I asked for a motion to table this matter until this owner can come to some type of terms and let us all know what we're actually looking at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Margetts. Barton Moody.
Hello, City
Mr. Moody?
Council. My name is Barton Moody, and I live at 906 Denver Street. I've been there for 12 years. My duplex was built in 1907 by the railroad and adds character and history to the neighborhood. I apologize for being late to this process. I was told by the owner a year ago that the market would be remodeled. Only last week I was informed that the rezoning would directly impact my quality of life by adding potentially a large building to the north of my duplex. Having a restaurant patio, which is in the plan, just 15 feet away from my front porch would make it unlivable. And I'm not expected to, I can't sacrifice the use of my front porch. You've got a picture of it there. I keep a tidy yard and I maintain a little free library for the community. I do not have a backyard. A new building at 30 feet is nearly twice the height of my home. Their plan also has 6 units above the ground floor, and these units would have to be under 400 square feet if that really is the plan, unless the real plan is to have a 3-story building. It's unclear to me. There are 4 dumpsters currently where they say 9 parking spaces are to go. There's no mention of my property easement, my right of access. The plan doesn't even mention the large impact that Pulp Lifestyle Kitchen has had on the neighborhood since they opened last October in traffic, noise, and parking. The growth in the area has been quick, and I've welcomed it. I answer tourist questions and help people with directions often. I volunteer in the community, and I help hundreds of small business owners with their taxation from that little duplex. I've worked very hard to carve a small piece from myself in this city that I grew up in and that my family founded. I bought my duplex knowing the rules that govern my neighborhood, and I do not think that an inaccurate, vague proposal is basis enough to change the zoning to allow who knows what. This is a rezoning for development at my expense. Thank you for your time and your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Would anyone else like to speak to the ordinance for 402 and 416 East, 900 South? Hearing none, I'll look to my colleagues for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Councilmember Johnston.
I move the council continue the public hearing to a future council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Johnston to continue the public hearing, second by Councilmember Mendenhall. Any discussion?
Just seems to me, I'm just seeing this for the first time, but it seems like there's some things to be worked out with the neighborhood, so I'd like to hear some more about it.
Great.
Agreed.
Any additional comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion to continue passes unanimously. Our next public hearing is regarding a D2 Downtown Support District Design Standard Zoning Text Amendment. And I do not have any cards for this public hearing. Would anyone like to speak to this public hearing regarding the D2 Downtown Support District Design Standard Zoning Text Amendment?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that the council close this public hearing and defer action to a later date.
Motion
Second.
by Councilmember Mendenhall. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Our next public hearing is regarding a zoning text amendment for restaurants with drive-through windows in the TSA MUECT zoning district. I have 2 cards here, one from Lynn Schwartz and a second from Judy Short. Is Lynn Schwartz here?
My name is Lynn Schwartz. I am Vice Chair of the Sugarhouse Community Council Land Use and Zoning Committee. As per the staff report, a conditional use cannot be denied unless its impact cannot be mitigated. I submit that adverse effects from drive-throughs can never be mitigated. I find it ironic in the extreme that a conditional use whose only purpose is to increase driving is proposed in a zone whose specific purpose is to decrease driving. I also cannot reconcile the continual wailing and breastfeeding of all city entities concerning air pollution with a rezone whose direct effect will be to increase pollution. For example, consider that there are 4 cars waiting for service that can last 5 to 10 minutes each. That is a lot of idling, and if you believe that drivers will turn their cars on and off as the line progresses, I have a bridge to sell you. I am well aware that the core belief of Salt Lake City is that nothing shall interfere with business, but you cannot have it both ways. You either care about reducing driving and pollution, or you don't.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Judy Short? And if somebody else would like to speak to this item, please fill out a blue card. Following Ms. Schwartz, Ms. Short, we'll have Lonnie Hendricks, or Lori Hendricks.
Good evening. My name is Judy Short. I'm the Land Use Chair for the Sugarhouse Community Council. And I don't think you'll ever hear me say I'm in favor of a single drive-through anything. I just am not. I have to put up with my husband who uses them occasionally, but I don't. On a matter of principle, but also because I think it's crazy. I'll quote your former colleague, Luke Garrett. This is from his Building Salt Lake article about the TSA zone. Too many driveways are anathema to creating walkable urban environments. If a TSA zone is made for people who are taking transit or they're walking, why do you need to put 72 cars going in and out of all these curb cuts? It's just crazy. People don't want to walk when it's like that. I'll use the Chick-fil-A in Sugarhouse as a great example of that. That's right on 21st South. It was allowed because, across the street there was whatever the hamburger place was, had one already, so therefore we couldn't say no to this one, even though that one had been there 25 years. But now if you go 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock, anytime in the noon hour, anytime after 5, the cars, the drive-through entrance is on the back of the building, which is what this is recommending. And the cars drive up, they drive around the back, and they queue up on the street. So they're queued up 6 or 8 in a row while everybody's trying to get through that skinny 2-lane highway to turn right and get on the freeway. It's a traffic obstruction to people trying to drive and to pedestrians trying to cross when those cars are coming in and out all day. And so I recommend that you deny this. It's foolish.
Thank you, Ms. Short. Lonnie Hendricks. I apologize, I could not read the first name. And then Soren Simonson will follow.
No apology needed. It was written really quickly. So it's Lori.
Lori, okay, great.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate what you're saying. I work for a local owner, Therese Gaddis, and we care about our neighborhood and we care about our community. We're good stewards of all the neighborhoods that we are currently in. We have Bruges Waffles in Sugarhouse. We have Pibbs Exchange there. We want to be part of the community, and the reason we ended up moving for this option is because it sat vacant for over a year. We really aggressively made efforts to make this happen for our company, and vagrancy became a huge issue there. Homeless moved in. We spent over $10,000 trying to clean it up from all the issues we were having. So now we have someone that's there in this space, but we're almost giving it away just to have a body there. So this will help us have more option. And we actually went to the architect who made this work to make this zoning happen, to draw a design for us so that we could, if we do a drive-through, we haven't made that decision at all. It's not on we don't have anyone lined up or the plan. She drew it so that it would wrap around the building, and there would be a lot more room than there is for the Chick-fil-A place. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hendricks. Soren Simonson. And Soren's is the last card, so if somebody else would like to speak, fill a card out quickly.
I wasn't planning to speak to this item. I'll talk to you later, but I want to just echo the comments from the other members from the Sugarhouse Community Council. Drive-throughs really work against walkable communities. We have long-term goals to make Sugarhouse a walkable community, and not only equal to, but beyond the automobile. They should be prioritized. So drive-throughs really don't have a place in the Sugarhouse Business District, and we hope you'll support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simonson. If there's anybody else, seeing none, I'll look to my colleagues.
Mr. Chair?
Okay, if you could come forward, you can fill a card out after, just so that we have it for the record, but just introduce yourself, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for allowing us to be here today. I want to just echo what my colleague Lori Hendricks had said. And this particular property is very close proximity to the freeway on Redwood Road in North Temple. And that's one of the reasons it's not as walkable, and I don't believe ever will be, due to the exact location that it's on that corner. And we just feel that we've had a lot of interest from coffee shops, restaurants that all really desire a drive-through. And in this particular location, we feel that it makes sense. You know, it's not across the board, but there's really no other opportunity for us and to contribute to the community. And we feel that a coffee shop would contribute to the traffic on North Temple, whether it's walkable or a car. So we're just really hoping that we can get this passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further commenters, Councilmember Johnston.
Mr. Chair, I move the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Johnston, second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion? Hearing none. Oh, there is discussion.
Just a quick one.
Yes.
I don't disagree with the TSA zoning issue. This particular zone is a transitional between TSA and other zones, which is pretty unique to the city. I think it only occurs on this section of North Temple and Redwood Road. So it wouldn't be universally applicable across TSA zones particularly, but the situation on this location makes it different in some ways based on the transitional piece of that. So that's why I'm supporting it in this particular instance, but it shouldn't apply to other TSA zones necessarily.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Valdemoros.
This one is, you know, one of those that when we created this zone, we were really adamant about not having drive-throughs in the TSA except this corner. And this corner, me working on North Temple in the past, it's been vacant for such a long time, and it's been having so many issues and so hard to find a tenant in there that we have to balance that portion. That could be it's a bad thing for the neighborhood, and also the neighborhood has been wanting a coffee shop or some sort of amenities for so long, and so I'm torn in that sense. At the same time, I'm looking at the Planning Commission's recommendation. That's a body that, you know, really takes the time to look at these ordinances and these amendments, and so I have a hard time voting on this one, but this is what I'm balancing. You know, a zone that, yes, we wanted certain things, but it's not working for that particular corner. Vagrancy, lack of businesses, and the community wanting businesses. So that's what I have in my mind.
Thank you, Councilmember Valdemoros. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion to close the public hearing, defer action, is passed unanimously. Our next ordinance is a zoning map amendment for properties at 868 East, 2700 South, and 2716 South, 900 East, also known as the 27th Street Cottages. I have two cards here, one from Judy Short and another from John Blankenvort. Mr. Blankenvort, is this the public hearing that you were also interested in speaking to?
I didn't put that I wanted to speak. I just put some questions on the back.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That is correct. Okay. So, Ms. Short.
Believe it or not, we're always looking for new housing in Sugarhouse, even though we've got all those probably 2,000 new apartment units that everybody's groaning and complaining about. What we don't have is single-family housing. And that's why we're really thrilled that this project's going forward. Now, I have to say that there are those who don't like the modern plan. The plan we originally approved were traditional homes, which fit in with the neighborhood. But we're willing to give that up for having some single-family homes. And we also like the fact that the existing home on 9th South will be remodeled rather than totally an overhaul, so that it'll remain an affordable price. Because that's the other thing we don't have in Sugarhouse, is much affordable housing. We have some single-family affordable housing, I should make clear, but a lot of it needs a lot of rehab. This one will already have the rehab and still be an affordable price, so we're pleased with that.
Thank you, Ms. Short. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Nick, if you could raise your hand again, so Nick Tarbett. If you could speak to Mr. Blankenvoort regarding his two questions. Nick is one of our planning staff, or our council staff that deals with a lot of the zoning issues, and so he'll be able to answer your two questions for you. Anyone else interested in speaking to this item?
Mr. Chair.
Hearing none. Councilmember Fowler.
Mr. Chair, I would move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Fowler. Do I have a second? A second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. The next items, B7 through B11, are grant applications that will all be heard together, and I do not have any cards for any of these grant application public hearings.
Mr. Chair.
Would any of you like to speak to any of these? Okay, hearing none, Councilmember Wharton.
Mr. Chair, I move the council close the public hearing and refer items B7 through B11 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Wharton, second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's been a long day. The motion passes unanimously.
It's been a long 4 years.
That too. Okay, so we will move on now to item C on our list, our potential action items. We have a resolution regarding our capital improvement program projects. If you will look to your motion sheets, and if someone would be able to make a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Fowler.
I move that the council approve a resolution adopting the capital improvement program project-specific allocations for fiscal year 2019-2020 as shown on the attached funding log.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Fowler, second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion? Hearing none. First, yes. So again, thank you to our staff for looking through and helping to fund our unfunded list. If I could have a staff person also provide those items that were on that unfunded list that we did fund to the reporters, that would be helpful, just so that they know which of those items were funded by the council. Already done. Thank you. Okay.
Ben's on it.
So thank you all for your work on this. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Second ordinance is 2058 North, 2200 West zoning map amendment. And that item, we are going to. We're going to pull. We will not take action on that tonight. So. We'll just move to item D, which is comments and questions to the mayor from the council. Any questions to the mayor? Hearing none. Comments to the city council. You will have another opportunity to address us. You have 2 minutes. If you are interested in speaking, fill out one of these cards. Travis Bird is the only card that I have. If there's anybody else interested, fill out one of these cards and bring it to me. Mr. Bird, if you could join us at the microphone.
Hi, I'm just here because I think it would be a great idea if we had a day for Jerry Sloan. He's probably going to die in the next couple of years. God bless my man, and I think we should have a day, because we're gonna need to practice, because we're gonna have a championship parade pretty soon, and this would be great practice for you guys, and thank you, and God bless you, and I heard that the city attorney was here. I'm trying to get a jazz museum built. I just want to know if I could do that and what I need, because I don't want to be sued. I've been sued once, and I never want to be sued again.
Mr. Byrd, our city attorney is Mr. Pace. He'd be more than happy to talk to you after this meeting.
All right, thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you.
I do see Soren Simonson interested in speaking. Soren, if you can come forward.
I'm going to speak to a topic that I know is sensitive today. The area north of I-80 and west of the airport is not only the historic Jordan River Delta, but has become the major Jordan River tributary to the Great Salt Lake. The surplus canal carries at times up to 80% of the water of the lower Jordan River. We're collectively as a region working to preserve every acre and scrap of open space on the Jordan River for habitat, which are minuscule compared to the thousands and thousands of acres of the Jordan River watershed at the south shore of the Great Salt Lake that Salt Lake City has proposed for development. It is by far less expensive and more impactful to preserve and restore enormous habitat from development than to try and recapture open space with limited ecological integrity after it has been developed. In 1928, just over 90 years ago, our predecessors preserved almost 80,000 acres for the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge at the north shore of Great Salt Lake. We should have our sights on a preserve of this magnitude for the other major Great Salt Lake tributary, the Jordan River, that are now in place, including the surplus canal. If we believe that current entitlements preclude massive preservation, then we are only limited by our lack of imagination, innovation, implementation tools, and resolve. There are many specific tools used in communities across the U.S. and in our own state for massive land preservation initiatives of this magnitude. These should be in our municipal sensitive land preservation toolbox. When I sat in your seat several years ago, I urged the administration at that time to develop these specific tools for this specific location. Instead, you were presented with the Northwest Quadrant Master Plan and archaic zoning tools that are now in place. If you have read any of the recent national and international reports on planetary health for wildlife, you know that circumstances are dire. We're using 20th century solutions to 21st century challenges. Page 27 of our city's comprehensive plan, Plan Salt Lake, adopted a year prior to the Northwest Quadrant Master Plan, provides the following vision, goal, and initiative statements. Expand natural areas and watershed protection acreage. Preserve natural open space and sensitive areas to sustain biodiversity and ecosystem functions through increased education regarding stewardship of natural lands, restoration of natural lands and critical habitat, let me just finish up this thought,
if you could just,
if I may.
Quickly.
Yeah, implementation and promotion of best practices in management and stewardship of natural lands, restoration of aquatic and riparian corridors and habitats, and a reduction in habitat fragmentation.
Thank you, Mr. Simonson, for your time. We have to adhere to our 2 minutes. You understand this as a council member for 8 years.
I'll try
Thank
and
you.
squeeze every ounce out.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, then, we will move to we don't have any new business, so item F is our unfinished business. There's a resolution, general obligation, street reconstruction, and refunding bonds for the Leonardo Series 2019A. Do you have a motion, or is that included in your motion sheet in front of you?
No.
I don't have a motion sheet.
I will look to the city attorney.
I was just going to say, if you're looking for your notes on that one, you may want to defer on that one, move to the next item, and come back to it if that's.
Okay, so here is a okay, all right. So there is a motion sheet from Councilmember Fowler.
I move that the City Council adopt the resolution authorizing up to $26,500,000 of the city's general obligation and refunding bonds.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember Fowler, second by Councilmember Mendenhall. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Our next item is a joint resolution for community renewable energy goal by 2030. I'll look to Councilmember Mendenhall.
Thank you. I move that the council adopts a resolution in support of a community goal of achieving an amount equivalent to 100% of the annual electric energy supply for participating community members from renewable energy resources by 2030.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously as well. I will now look for a motion on our consent agenda.
And Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Wharton, second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion? Councilmember Wharton.
Yes, I just want to thank one of our applicants for being here. Usually people don't come to the formal meeting, and I felt like you had to wait and sit through a lot of other things. So I want to recognize you for being here and welcome you to your new position.
Thank you, Ms. Ma.
Yes.
Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. And with that, we're adjourned.